You really think that you can just do this hope and change thing on Kamala? You think people are going to buy that?
I think people are pretty excited about Kamala Harris. This is like the most excited convention I've seen. I've been to conventions since 2004.
Were you at the RNC in Milwaukee? That was pretty hot.
I was at the RNC in Milwaukee. Little cocky. Little cocky there.
Well, that's because we didn't really know who we were running against.
Yeah, you guys had it wrapped up.
Yeah, we thought we were running against Biden.
You were figuring out, how big the electoral landslide was going to be. Yeah, everyone's getting a little nervous.
Yeah, no one's nervous. Everybody knows it's going to be close.
Trump seems a little nervous.
I don't think you know anything about Trump. But do you really think that you can just take Kamala and just make her the hope and change candidate? You can just do this with any candidate? Because she was very unpopular like a month ago.
I think if you look at the polls now, she's pretty popular. And I think that it's a pretty close race. I think she's maybe ahead by a point or two, but I think this is always going to be a close race. And, she's going to have an opportunity tonight to talk to the country, to lay out her vision, to talk about why we don't.
How specifically do you turn the page? That's the case you're making about turning the page on an administration that A, Vice President Harris is a part of, and that B, as recently as this week, she has been reluctant to criticize or say she would change anything about.
Yeah, well, I think keeping in mind the big difference here, and the choice is going to be the difference between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact. Yeah. The work that we have done, for example, capping the cost of insulin at $35 a month for our seniors is something I care deeply about allowing Medicare to negotiate drug prices. Yes. And bring the cost of prescription medication down for seniors, but my intention is to expand that for all Americans.
Mm-hmm. Because new polls are out and it doesn't look good for Kamala Harris. I have not been this worried in a long time. So we don't have a lot of time left. We have less than a month left, and she's now losing in almost all the swing states. Look, I'm telling you this, not again to ha-ha or whatever. I'm telling you because the pundits are almost always wrong. They never come back and tell you, oh, yeah, we got it wrong, etc. They don't tell you oftentimes ahead of time. They do Monday morning quarterback. All those different things that they do wrong. The reason I tell you guys stuff ahead of time is so you can see whether I'm right or not. So you can see whether you should trust our analysis of what is reality. Not what we want, but what is reality. So that's why in that context, let me tell you, 4 days ago, this weekend on October 5th, I wrote, I think Trump is going to retake the lead. Kamala started playing prevent defense with too small a lead. By having her surrogates tell everyone how pro-business she is, she accidentally gave up the mantle of the change candidate. That's what's going to decide this election.
Mick, I'm hearing a lot of rumors flying around about internal polls for the Harris campaign that are showing her losing to Trump in key states like Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. And I'll note that journalist Mark Halperin has said that Kamala Harris is in a lot of trouble. In the conversations I'm having, he said, with Trump people and Democrats with data, they're extremely bullish on Trump's chances in the last 48 hours. Now, remember, Halperin, of course, called Biden pulling out 3 days before he did it. This is all pointing to wobbles in the Harris campaign. What do you reckon? What's your read on all of this?
It's fascinating to watch the language, James, that the campaigns use. I wrote a piece at The Hill. You had a Hill piece there just on your graphic. I wrote a piece in The Hill today talking about the language that the Democrats are using, and they're starting to sort of lower expectations for Kamala Harris, to sort of maybe grease the skids that she's going to lose, but it's not her fault. They're talking now about something called the electoral system or the electoral college bias, and how it's unfair that the Democrats have to win so much more of the popular vote in order to win the presidency. Of course, the popular vote constitutionally in this country doesn't make any difference. But I think what you're seeing from Halperin, you're seeing from a lot of high-ranking Democrats inside the Kamala inner circle, starting to hit the panic button. They're seeing some data that really bothers them. Now, that being said, there's some language out of the Trump campaign that makes me wonder if they're not seeing some data that worries them as well. He came out today and talked about offering tax deductibility for interest payments on cars, something that every Democrat candidate has talked about for a long time. So I think both sides are a little bit worried, but right now I think the Democrats are starting to get a little bit more worried as we get into these last 3 or 4 weeks.
Well, and I thought